Do I like this game? Yes! Hey, it's Chris. What are we talking about today? Leviathan freaking Wilds. This is Shadows of Colossus, the board game, right? It takes a spin on the jumping around the boss monster, trying to knock him out as the wee little guy. They sent me a review copy, and this is why I'm going to tell you, it might be one of the best games of the year. You ready? Cooperative style, let's frickin' go. So again, the premise of this game, relatively straightforward. Knock out the boss, knock him out, and win, right? Straightforward. You're just little dudes climbing up the side of the boss, trying to get to these little dice that are located here in the teal and the purple, doing them enough damage, getting all the dice off the board, and you win. Spiral-bound notebook, easy card-driven gameplay, fantastic ease of setup, boom, shakalaka. Now, what is this game actually doing on a turn-by-turn basis? Brief list of overviews, and then I'll tell you my pros, my cons, and whether or not this is up your ilk, if you will. So what do we have? We have a campaign book that's sitting in front of me, a la the monster that you see. And this monster is set up here to illustrate the various waypoints that you're going to be traversing in order to get to those crystals to knock them out to win in the first place. As you can see here, you've got various spots on the board. You've got where your marker is, you've got where the crystals are, you've got some damage terrain, and you've got some tough grip terrain. And so all of those areas are going to influence how you're going to be maneuvering, jumping, floating, gliding, throwing all around the place to get there very quickly. Because this game is paced off of the boss. And what the boss is doing is he's slowly escalating no matter what you're doing until the attacks just are flying hot and heavy, because each individual boss has their own deck of cards. So all of them have two sides, as you can see here. You have a teal and again the purple, right? You flip them over and you actually have all of them purple side face up as you're going through the rounds. So then in the first round, all of these are going to be purple side. As you go through the round marker, though, the rage track, if you will, after you've played all 5 of these cards, because this game is based off of an I go, you go sort of situation. It's based on, as you can see here, the rage track. The threat is revealed. So you flip over the first top card here, do whatever it says, activate your climber, resolve this threat, and then draw back your hand of cards that we'll talk about in a second for each individual asymmetric combo character that you have. Then, once you've done that 5 times, so 5 people going, the boss going 5 times based on the number of cards in this threat, then your track gets moved up 1 space. And so it gives you a little bit of sliding difficulty there. And what the number at the bottom of this means is how many of these cards that I just showed you get flipped from the purple side as they're laying down to the teal side. And so this one gets activated and they're worse. They're harder. They're more to deal with, right? So in this case, all players have to lose a card, have to discard a card. That's what the grip symbol means. In the teal side, the hard side, the active player, whoever's turn it is going to be, is going to lose 2. Everyone else loses 1. So you can start to see that all of these escalate things significantly. And as this track moves up, it gets more and more of these cards, and then more and more of the more bad things going on. So that is the bad guy. You just essentially have this deck of small amount of cards, shuffle, rinse, and repeat. Now, this booklet in front of me, along with this huge stack of cards right here, has 17 different bosses that all act differently. They may do damage, they may cause the little blight corruption to increase, they may cause you to discard cards, they may put obstacles down, they may make your life a living, miserable heck existence while you're climbing said creature in the first place. So how do you mitigate that? How do you deal with that? That's where these 2 stacks on my left come in. So with these cards here, we've got the faction cards, the job cards, if you will, and then the character cards. And so each of them is going to provide a certain amount of card to your deck. So for example, here we have the occupation or the skill, the job, the mender. You can see that more of his cards are in the support style and the less in the power and the mobility. and it adds these cards into your deck, into your hand, so you can start to see what you can do. Now, these cards are different because they have 3 different aspects on them you need to know. The upper left-hand corner is how many action points it is if you play it for the action points. The side symbology over here, we'll talk about in a second, or you get the bottom ability. And so when you choose the card that you're going to play, you choose either the action points up here, which give you access to all of the generic actions that you can take on a turn-by-turn basis, which are significant, or you get this ability down here. And this, for example, Ascend, allows you to just jump to one of the locations that are, well, highlighted there in that way. And so you have the ability to action points, help out other people, or you also have these sides symbols that we mentioned here, and that makes you immune to whatever that is. In that case, that's sort of the corruption that I was mentioning. This, if you play it, if you go through a damage area on that turn, or you are potentially damaged, you are immune to it as well. And so that timing of when you're going to be playing those cards is very important. The other aspect of this is because each of these are asymmetric, right? The characters here, for example, you have Fix. And Fix has +1 to my strikes when I'm doing damage to the dice in the first place. Then Fix also comes with 2 cards here of their own unique abilities, so that are more asymmetry for this particular character to balance out to get a full set of my deck. And so you're going to be having 3 of these in your hand at any time, drawing back up at the end of the turn, as you saw on the Rage track that broke it down a minute ago. That is the gist of the game. Go back and forth. Now, this may look really simple and straightforward, and you get the little target things that you get to put on the map in the first place that sort of tell you, okay, this is the range in which this attack is going to be able to take place. And so you know that I need to be outside of this ring in order to avoid the damage. And then you have little mushrooms that are on the side of the creature that give you various stats or action points or buffs or heals or anything along those lines that you can pick up along the way as well. So you're going to be slinging, traversing, gliding, grabbing, striking, all while the iron is hot in order to take it out as fast as you can because of the escalation rage track that I just showed you. And with 17 different creatures as a whole, once you get past the first 1 or 2, folks, boy, does it open up. Boy, does it really give you some different stuff. And so if you're worried about a game like this, when you go, okay, Chris, you have 17 different things, right? It's not like stretch goal box where you've got 37 different characters and all of them have slight maybe differences, right? No, these are worth it. There's a lot of tokens that get added. There's a lot of variable dynamics. There's terrain. There's mitigations. There's abilities. There's ways you get injured as you're going along. And I didn't even mention the fact that, as you see here, you can start to see that there are also little ledges, because if you ever run out of cards in your hand, if you ever forced down enough, when your deck runs out and you can't draw anymore, well, before you can reshuffle, well, you potentially lose your grip, because that grip is the yellow symbol that was on a couple of those cards that I showed you, and then you fall. You fall. And the fall damage, well, is just whatever you're falling through. And you can potentially fall through a couple different things that you can cause problems, or you can fall into the ledges that will catch you in the meantime. Or you have cards that will anchor you to the side when you use them appropriately to prevent yourself from doing so when you know it's going to happen anyway. Because otherwise you can fall all the way down to the bottom here when you've got a significant climb back up towards you. So that is the game in a nutshell. So I buried the lead here. Truth be told, right? This player board here of the character card, the actions that we all have on a generic turn, the AP that they cost, and then your 2 tracks down here at the bottom. This is very important because this game is not a play until you can't. It's a play until, well, you either win or you lose, because losing can actually happen anytime to anybody. This health tracker goes down. Well, you know what? That's fine. But when you strike these crystals, you gain for each strike. Not how much damage you do, but each time you strike it, you gain that. And if these 2 tiles ever touch, overlap, you are defeated. And why this matters is because if anyone is defeated, you lose. Now, you get a little bit of last chance ditch effort to not lose, so you don't immediately lose, but you lose then. So it's not a, okay, you know what, just smash, grab, go, and just who cares, screw it, right? You have to be more strategic with your planning, because you can't really get rid of this. And so that's what matters. You can heal up and keep this thing to the left, but you can't really keep this thing back down to the right once it starts getting rocking and rolling. I didn't talk to you about the basic actions that you have available to you, but as you can see here, you can climb, you can jump, you can glide, you can strike, you can rest, or you can mend. And so all of those are ways of mitigating or utilizing the things that are special on those special abilities, but also differences. If this game is not hard enough for you, if you are a fan of only the toughest of cooperative games, right? Well, I have here the Mutation pack, which all of these Leviathans have attributes, right? And so what you do is you find a mutation in this deck that does not match the attribute on the actual page of the Leviathan in the first place from the book, and you give it an extra attribute, which changes the dynamic and the gameplay variant as a whole and makes it a heck of a lot harder. So for all you hardcore folks out there, this part's for you too. But you don't need it either. You don't. But it's fun. So, do I like this game? Yes! I like this game a lot, folks. Mooncrab Games has really knocked it out of the park with this one. This one has one of the highest potentials I have played all year long, period, right? For enjoyment factor, but also I can see this being built upon significantly. I don't know what they have in store for expansion, so I'm really intrigued. I want to see what they can do with this system. This is doing a really cool amount of tactics, a little bit of strategy, and a lot of mixing and matching that you can do some cool, entertaining, not overly staying its length cooperative game style of things. This game is freaking awesome, right? Because of these aspects. Easy to play, easy rules, easy, just to learn. It's easy to get to the freaking table value is tremendous. I really, really love the asymmetry between these characters. I love the asymmetry between the bosses. It's great. It really keeps you on your toes. You need to adapt to what's going on a boss by boss basis, because you start to know what these cards are, right? But you never know what order they're going to come out in. You never know which one's going to have the flipped upside down one as the rounds goes on. And so you're never quite sure which one is going to be the one that you're really going to have to avoid and whose turn it's actually going to come out on in order to influence the map the most. Because it may target you. It may not target you. It may target the person farthest up or farthest down or furthest health or whatever it may be. And so just because it's on your turn, it's not going to tell you exactly what you're expecting, right? You're going to have to deal with it individually, turn by turn. So very, very tactically driven, which I love. My thoughts and concerns at the same time, right? Like, no game is perfect. What are my issues? Well, truth be told, this game is pretty freaking brutal at the 2-player count. As you can see on the map here, it's really easy for me to get over here with this guy, over here with this guy. This guy can maybe get the middle over here, and this one can take the side ones over here. With only 2 players, it's really hard to traverse really quickly before things go, well, significantly berserk. And that dynamic, it really behooves you. It's really probably going to be best, most enjoyable, least hair-pulling at 3 and 4. 2 is not going to be its strongest because it's going to be much more difficult, I would argue. Maybe not. Maybe you're really, really good at this game. Maybe I'm just really, really bad at this game too. So take that for what it is. The other issue, it's sort of like an Aeon's End, if you will. Hear me out. Follow me with this for a second. With the cards that I mentioned, right? With the classes and the characters. If you don't choose wisely, or frankly speaking, if you're an idiot like I am, and you just choose poorly, either combinations of these that don't always give you what you need, or especially again at the lower player counts, combinations that aren't as synergistic, 2 healers, 2 strikers, whatever it may be, right? That you're going to have a lot more trouble on some of these than you'd like. If there's not a good way of saying or knowing or going into it that, oh, okay, this one I need X, Y, and Z features, or X, Y, and Z powers, or X, Y, and Z mitigation via one of these 2. You don't know. And so you're going to screw that up. And it's not going to work. And so obviously, if you have 4 people doing that, there's less chance for you to tumble and stumble to your doom, a la Thematically Incorporated. But if you have less, so your luck or your mileage may vary in that sense as well. That is by far and away the biggest criticism. Another minor thing is that in some of these games, in some of these bosses, when I showed you some of these cards, right, with the tops and the bottoms, or more specifically from one of the specific classes here, if we pull out the breaker, sometimes these abilities at the bottom just become a lot less useful because you need 5 different action points more than just this. And that becomes the balancing act of, okay, well, it's fine if, it's a 3, but, maybe I really just need the 5, and that's where the more powerful ability is. So, sometimes you're going to use the action points a lot more than you're going to use the abilities. That's what we found in some cases, which is a little anticlimactic because this is where you want to be just using all the cool stuff all the time, right? And so there's not as much of that sometimes. So just, again, take that for what you will. But again, that's the blessing curse of having such large decks of characters that are asymmetric and classes. And so I would imagine they probably have more in store in the expansion, which again is an embarrassment of riches, right? Which can be both a great, great, great thing or sort of an Achilles heel, depending on how you feel about games like this in the first place. The other thing is you can see this gets just a wee bit crowded at the little bit higher player counts. Not so much, obviously, there's not a ton of stuff on the map here, but, if you've got the dice sitting here, and I've got my guy sitting here, and then I've got this thing sitting here, it gets a little bit, you can bump this, you can knock it, and then we have a little mushroom thing, sitting right there. So, again, it can get a little crowded that way, which is a minor criticism, because I freaking love just having the little wooden screen printed meeples. I'm so glad that this game is not a miniature game, because the spiral bound notebook, again, the spirals in the middle get a little bit, again, kind of, sitting there, gets a little in the way, but it's a minor gripe at best. It's easy in the sense that, boy howdy, I can teach this to anyone, the basics, the overarching, the how-to, without any trouble whatsoever. But it's not easy because this game is, a challenge. And if it's not a challenge, you haven't played enough of these 17 bosses that are all different and all giving you unique conditions, unique setups, unique terrains, unique climbs, right? I'm not kidding, right? Let's just flip here a second. Let's push this aside and let's flip to some of these other ones so you can see, right? Oh, that one's going vertical. Oh, that one's going vertical. So your paths become completely different in how you're going to be able to maneuver up, because you can't just go one direction the whole time. Freaking look at this thing, right? This is awesome. So you start to get into the back ones again, which are just completely crazy. There's huge gaps here where you're going to have to be jumping. You're going to have to be gliding. You're going to have to do crazy, crazy things. And so again, there's not even any spoilers on this, but you can see the dynamic differences on all of these maps, which are significant. And it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. So that's why I think this is easily going to be in my top 10 of the year if you've made it this far. So who is this right for? Who isn't this right for? If you want something super strategic, if you want a cooperative game that's going to be a little bit longer, if you don't want something that is going to be individually scenario based and you need linkage, if you need carryover, if you need roguelike with progression, this doesn't have it, right? This doesn't have any linking between these bosses. There is no ability upgrades or class upgrades with this as a whole in the base game. So that's going to be missing if that's what you're looking for. The 5 cards of the boss, it's going to be the same 5 cards if you play, the Sage here every single time. But with the characters you have and the order they come out and which one and when gets twisted, it's going to give you a slightly more different experience every time, even if you play it repeatedly. I'm not worried about, the sameness if I play any of these bosses, because again, that's probably the blessing, is I can just flip over right here to Fury, number 9, and just go. So you don't have to do them in order. There's no need from that sense, right? That's part of the problem with campaign, with legacy games, right? Is that you need to have the consistent group. You need to have the progression. You need to have people that know every time what you can just jump right in with this and it works. And it's not long. The turns are snappy and quick. There's not a lot of analysis paralysis. It just flows naturally. And that is something to be said. And again, quarterbacking? No. This is not a game that requires quarterbacking. This is not a game that's going to be easily quarterbacked. This is more Spirit Island in the sense that because everybody has their own unique cards, hands, and abilities, you're going to be having to manage yours, even though I will always say that quarterbacking is a game group problem, not an actual game problem. But this, don't have any issue with it. So there you go. That's Leviathan Wilds. They sent it to me. Say it like it is. I like it a lot. So I can't wait to see what they've got in the other campaign that's coming up. And, well, we'll go from there. Any questions, comments, concerns down below, let me know. Have a great freaking fantastic day. Peace out.